Wrecked. Beast Brock Lesnar vs the Samoan Werewolf Jacob Fatu in massive backstage attack by the Beast. The impossible just happened. Brock Lesnar and Jacob Fatu just had the most brutal backstage brawl in WWE history, and what makes this absolutely insane is that for the first time in his career, the Beast Incarnate met someone who didn't back down, didn't get dominated, and actually made Brock question his own superiority. The destruction these two legitimate warriors caused backstage was so catastrophic that WWE had to evacuate entire sections of the arena. And when you hear what triggered this collision between two of the most dangerous humans in professional wrestling, you're going to be absolutely shocked at how close this came to ending both their careers. Security footage that WWE is desperately trying to keep from leaking shows these two monsters trading blows with such devastating force that concrete walls were cracked, equipment was destroyed, and multiple WWE personnel had to be treated for injuries sustained just from being near the battle zone. This wasn't wrestling, this was two legitimate fighters with combined decades of combat sports experience unleashing violence that made their scripted work look like gentle choreography by comparison. What makes this confrontation so much more terrifying than typical backstage altercations is how evenly matched these two proved to be in ways that nobody expected. Every report, every prediction, every analysis had suggested that Brock's UFC experience and genetic freak status would make him dominant over anyone in WWE. But Jacob Fatu proved that Samoan warrior genetics combined with street fighting background creates a force that even the Beast can't easily overcome. But here's what's going to make your blood boil with excitement and terror: this fight between Brock and Jacob wasn't over championships, storylines, or professional rivalry. According to multiple sources who witnessed the initial confrontation and are now risking termination to reveal the truth, this battle erupted because both men were recruited by different factions and their collision was inevitable once the Bloodline's internal politics forced them to choose opposing sides in a war that's been brewing for months. The attack started when Brock confronted Jacob in the parking garage about his alliance with certain Bloodline members who Brock views as weak and unworthy of the family legacy. The disrespect in Brock's tone when he questioned Jacob's loyalty to pretenders wearing the Anoa'i name was the spark that ignited an explosion of violence that shocked everyone who thought they understood the limits of backstage confrontations. You think your family name makes you untouchable? I've been destroying your relatives for years. Brock's opening verbal assault on Jacob's heritage and family connections was designed to provoke exactly the response he got: immediate and overwhelming violence from someone whose Samoan pride wouldn't allow such disrespect to go unanswered. The tactical psychology behind Brock's provocation revealed someone who wanted this fight to happen. But Jacob Fatu's response to Brock's disrespect wasn't just emotional reaction, it was calculated warrior fury from someone who had been waiting for the opportunity to prove that the new generation of Samoan wrestlers possessed the same legendary toughness as their predecessors. You've been beating up my older relatives, let's see how you do against someone in their prime. Jacob's counter-challenge acknowledged Brock's victories while suggesting that age and evolution had shifted the competitive balance. The first exchange of punches between these two was so devastating that witnesses described seeing shockwaves ripple through the air from the impacts. Neither man was holding back or performing for cameras, they were throwing strikes with full force, aiming for maximum damage, and testing each other's legendary durability in the most direct way possible. The sound of fist meeting flesh echoed through the concrete structure like gunshots. What makes this brawl even more insane is how Brock's usual dominant strategy of overwhelming opponents with superior size and strength proved ineffective against Jacob's combination of comparable size, superior youth, and unpredictable fighting style developed on the streets rather than in wrestling rings or MMA cages. For every German suplex Brock attempted, Jacob countered with Samoan wrestling techniques passed down through generations. The most shocking moment came when Jacob actually lifted Brock off the ground and drove him through a catering table with a move that witnesses describe as combining suplex technique with raw explosive power that caught the Beast completely off guard. The sight of Brock Lesnar's body crashing through furniture with Jacob standing over him was something nobody thought they would ever see, and it changed the entire dynamic of their confrontation. But Brock's response to being put on his back was exactly what you'd expect from someone with his competitive pride and fighting background. He came back with even greater intensity and violence, delivering a series of strikes and throws that proved his reputation wasn't built on mythology but on genuine combat ability that remains elite despite his age and part-time status. The escalation between them created genuine concern that someone would suffer career-ending injury. Security's attempts to intervene were absolutely futile because both Brock and Jacob treated the security personnel like obstacles rather than authority figures. Multiple security staff were knocked aside or injured while trying to separate two men who were completely focused on proving their superiority over each other. The helplessness of WWE's security team exposed how inadequate normal safety protocols are when dealing with legitimate combat athletes. The destruction caused during this brawl was so extensive that WWE had to delay the start of their television taping by over 30 minutes while crews cleaned up debris and assessed structural damage to the backstage area. Equipment cases were crushed, walls were dented, and a section of concrete barrier actually cracked from the impact of bodies being thrown against it with superhuman force. But here's where this situation becomes absolutely explosive. As the fight continued and both men showed visible damage from the sustained violence, other Bloodline members and Brock's associates began arriving and choosing sides, threatening to turn a two-man brawl into a full-scale faction war that could have resulted in mass injuries and potential legal consequences. The tribal politics that triggered this fight were about to escalate beyond anyone's control. The intervention that finally stopped the fight wasn't security or management, it was Paul Heyman appearing with a microphone and screaming at both men that their battle was destroying the business for personal ego and that if they wanted to prove superiority, they should do it in front of cameras where their violence could generate money instead of just legal liability and insurance claims. The business arguments succeeded where physical force had failed. Industry veterans who heard about this brawl are calling it one of the most significant backstage fights in wrestling history because it represents the collision between old-school UFC legitimacy and new-generation Samoan athletic dominance. The fact that neither man clearly won or lost has created intense speculation about what would happen if they fought under official rules with preparations and strategies. The financial implications of this brawl are massive because it proves that both Brock and Jacob possess the kind of legitimate toughness and fighting ability that makes their eventual match must-see television that could generate record-breaking pay-per-view numbers. WWE's challenge is managing both men's egos and ensuring they don't destroy each other before the company can monetize their rivalry properly. But the psychological impact on the entire WWE roster from witnessing this fight cannot be overstated. Other wrestlers who thought they were tough now understand there are levels to this business that they'll never reach, and the gap between legitimate fighters and sports entertainers has never been more obvious or intimidating. The fear factor that both Brock and Jacob now possess will affect every interaction they have. Brock Lesnar's aura of invincibility has been somewhat damaged by this confrontation because for the first time in years, people saw him in a fight where his victory wasn't guaranteed or even likely. The Beast's vulnerability has been exposed, and while that makes him more human and relatable, it also opens him up to challenges from other wrestlers who now believe he can be beaten. Jacob Fatu's stock has skyrocketed following this brawl because he proved that youth, conditioning, and Samoan warrior genetics can compete with UFC credentials and established reputation. His performance against Brock has positioned him as a legitimate main event talent who doesn't need years of build-up or protective booking to be taken seriously as an elite competitor. The medical attention both men required after the fight was extensive but handled privately to avoid revealing the extent of injuries sustained during unsanctioned violence. The fact that both Brock and Jacob were walking and talking afterward is testament to their incredible durability, but witnesses report seeing bruising and swelling that suggested the damage was significant despite their tough guy exteriors. Social media reaction to leaked information about this brawl has been absolutely insane, with fans desperate for any footage or additional details about what happened. The mystery and limited information available has actually increased interest and speculation far beyond what a televised segment could have achieved, creating organic buzz that money cannot buy. The long-term booking possibilities created by this brawl are virtually unlimited because it establishes a legitimate personal rivalry based on pride, respect, and the need to prove superiority. Their eventual official match doesn't need complicated storylines or elaborate build-up, just the promise that these two will finish what they started in that parking garage. Quick question for the comments: based on what you've heard about this backstage brawl, who do you think would win in an official match, Brock Lesnar's experience and UFC credentials, or Jacob Fatu's youth and Samoan warrior genetics? Let me know below. And here's another one: should WWE turn this real backstage fight into an official storyline, or keep it mysterious and let fans speculate about what really happened? Drop your thoughts in the comments.